What's up, everybody? This is the Booch, and welcome to episode 43 of the Boochcast Reviews Darkside of the Ring. And as you can see, we are in the world of StreamYard, which if you've seen the Darkside of 2000 videos, depending on which videos you watch first or second or whatever, you're familiar with the StreamYard world. But of course, you're also familiar with the man who is joining me for this episode of Darkside of the Ring. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Mr. Gator Ricky Ross.
Yes, that would declare. Yes. The next time you're gonna hear that type of hitting of flesh is gonna be when I beat the fuck out of Derek Shapiro. Yay!
Yes. I'm gonna get some context here for those who don't know. We're operating from Derek's StreamYard account, and he had to delete some old files so we can get some room to record this video. I had to have Derek on the phone, and Gator decided to have Derek do a show for charity. So at some point down the road, it's going to be Gator Ricky Ross versus Derek Shapiro in a match for charity.
For charity!
Actually, he just texted me saying he deleted some more stuff, so we should have some more free room here. So we're here, ladies and gentlemen, for episode 43. This one's a special one, and that's why Gator's here. It's called Terry Gordy, Final Flight of the Freebird.
Please remove your hats for the national anthem. Here we go. I'm as free as a bird now. And you, bird, you cannot change. Oh. Fast forward 13 minutes later, we have finished the national anthem. Thank you, children.
Absolutely. Yes. A prodigy who broke into the business before he could drive, Terry Gordy's skill in the ring was matched only by his legendary toughness. So he was known for being one of the toughest guys in a wrestling ring, especially back during an era where it was mostly tough guys that got into wrestling. You know, it wasn't just for everybody.
So this is one of my favorite things to talk about. This is Southern wrestling. Mr. Bucciarelli's drinking a beer.
Yes. If you talk about Southern wrestling, you drink a beer.
People called him tough back then, man. He was tough as nails. He was Bam Bam Terry Gordy. He had a way about himself in a ring that appealed not only to the old timers of the time, but also the newer generation as well. Because you got to remember, this is during also the same time where MTV is now hit.
Yeah.
So the Freebirds are basically the first team to come out to rock and roll music.
Yes. Terry had the ability to make anybody look good as long as they were willing to pay the price.
He was stiffer than a wedding dick. Stiffer than I'm going to be to Derek Shapiro!
Yes. Gordy's career skyrocketed as part of the fabulous Freebirds, a tag team trio that revolutionized the business with their in-ring theatrics and total commitment to their rock and roll lifestyle. Like as Gator said, they were the first team to really bring rock and roll into wrestling.
And the weed.
Yes.
The weed and the Jack Daniels.
Yes. There's a later episode where they go into great detail about that. Gordy's no-holds-barred style would take him around the world, but also accelerate his self-destructive behavior until a flight on a routine trip to Japan would drastically alter his career and the man himself.
Yes.
Now, in this episode, we see his daughter, Miranda Gordy, and we found this out. His son, and I didn't know this, and I don't think a lot of people knew this either. His son wrestled in WWE.
He did?
Yes. If you remember from the early 2000s, there was a wrestler named Slam Master J. And also, remember when Luke Gallows was Festus, and he had the guy next to him, Jesse?
That was Terry Gordy's son.
Jesse was Terry Gordy's son, the guy that would do the dong.
The single stupidest intro song in all of wrestling.
Yeah. But he was Slam Master J. So if you remember Slam Master J in the Ruthless Aggression era, and you remember Jesse, who was with Festus when Luke Gallows was originally Festus, Jesse is Terry Gordy's son. Born in Rossville, Georgia, Terry Gordy is barely a teenager when he gets his start in the wrestling business. Because of his size and eagerness, he was wrestling on TV by the time he was 14. He was a prodigy, but still worked hard and studied the game. He learned on the road as opposed to traditional schooling. So instead of actually going to a wrestling school, he was basically learning on the job.
Yeah, and that's the best kind of training there is.
Do you recommend that today, or should they all just be in a school?
No. Today, I recommend you go and get trained by a reputable trainer at a reputable school, and you don't go to some outlaw mud show trainer where they will teach you. Most reputable trainers will teach you the aspects of television as well. I can't recommend enough someone like Tom Pritchard,
Yes.
like the Pritchard Jacobs Academy, School of Morton, Ricky Morton School.
Yes,
I
100% been there.
I work at a school, but we don't have the ability to teach television but so much. I mean, the Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant school is pretty good. Just go to North Carolina or
Pretty
Tennessee.
much. I will say this though, if he's ever working a show and you see him there, this is one person you should definitely sit under the learning tree if you meet with him. But
The
you-
learning tree?
Not that learning tree. Well, that learning tree would work too. But the guy that most people you wouldn't think to talk to, he's in the business, but he's not a wrestler. Most of his career has been a referee. But a guy you really want to talk to, Scott Armstrong. He knows his
Yep.
shit.
Well, Scott Armstrong was a wrestler.
Oh, he was a wrestler. Okay.
Every single one of the Armstrong boys wrestled. Scott Armstrong was big in Smoky Mountain. He was Dixie Dynamite for those that know Dixie Dynamite.
Okay.
Yeah. Scott was big. Brad was big. And of course, the most famous Armstrong of them all, old Jesse James, the road dog himself.
Now, as far as Terry Gordy goes, he met Michael Hayes in Mississippi. They had instant chemistry in the ring and on the mic. Michael would piss people off, and Terry would fuck people up. And that was basically their style. So Michael would do all the talking. Terry was mostly the muscle. They were soulmates as far as friends go.
For friends.
Yes.
And not in the kind like your Aunt Merle, who lives with somebody named your Aunt Chris. Not in those kind of friends.
Exactly.
Those are my real aunts. Those are my real aunts, by the way.
Yeah.
So.
Now, they came up with the name Freebirds because they were both huge fans of Leonard Skinner.
Leonard Skinner?
Yes.
Leonard Skinner?
Leonard Skinner.
Leonard Skinner!
That's how they got the name the Fabulous Freebirds, because Leonard Skinner inspired the name.
Oh, hail Jesus.
Yes. And they would play Freebird and come out to the ring. So that was their entrance theme, Freebird, which is why it was very fitting for Gator to sing that at the beginning of the show.
Grace us with the national anthem.
Yes. They would come out to the ring in silver robes, and they would do a slow motion strut to the beat of Freebird.
Yes. Now, they did fast forward to the guitar solo piece.
Yes.
Of Freebird. They didn't come out to the original. They fast forwarded to the solo.
Yes.
Because the solo had a little more pep in the step.
Exactly. And back then, before this time, and this is anything people don't know about, really before entrance music became a thing in pro wrestling, this is what happened. The bell rang, the wrestlers walked to the ring, they got introduced, and they just wrestled. So before the Freebirds, there wasn't really entrance music.
Okay, it's hard for people to believe, but not everybody had entrance music back in the day. Only the main event stars had entrance music. Hell, it wasn't even until the late 80s before even some of the bigger stars like in Memphis, in Mid-South. Guys like the Junkyard Dog didn't get a theme until like later years when he started using Another One Bites the Dust.
Yeah, I remember that.
I bet you do, you old-ass man.
The Freebirds soon joined Mid-South Wrestling, where promoter Bill Watts pairs them up with Buddy Robert, converting the tag team into a trio. Buddy was the veteran, Michael was the promo, and Terry was the physical enforcer. So that was the roles they played within the Freebirds. They got over everywhere they went and became one of the most legendary tag teams of all time.
Yes.
In fact, so much so that when you see a trio holding tag belts, that's why they call it the Freebird rule, in tribute to the Fabulous Freebirds.
Yes, it's called the Freebird rule, not the Cat Claws.
Yeah.
Fucking NXT.
Shawn Michaels, I guess, modernized it a little bit.
And I hate every bit of it.
Now,
Fuckers.
Yes. Deep in the heart of Texas, World-Class Championship Wrestling is dominated by the three eldest sons of the promoter, Fritz Von Erich. David, Terry, and Kevin.
Wait a minute. No, you didn't.
What did I do? What?
Nothing. Once upon a time in a little place called Texas, there were some sons of a feller named Fritz Von Erich. He was a Nazi, but Apparently in Texas, it's okay to be a Nazi and they like you. So,
Okay. I guess.
what? They like it. Look, Texas is big on corporal punishment. They'll put you in the chamber. It's all good. Anyway,
David, Carey, and Kevin. This is, of course, the Von Erich brothers.
those are the three famous ones.
On a previous episode, we talked about the Von Erichs, so you might be familiar with them.
If not, go watch Iron Claw. Great movie. Don't get mad at Ric Flair. The guy tried.
Yeah, the guy tried. Okay. The Von Erich brothers were popular, but they had never been tested. So they go up against the Freebirds in one of the most legendary rivalries in the history of wrestling. The Freebirds were the perfect heels to the babyface Von Erichs. And again, like, they never really been tested.
Well, and it was also a big football rivalry, too, because the Freebirds were from Georgia and the Von Erichs were from Texas. So it was Texas versus Georgia, good versus evil, cleanliness versus dirtiness, godliness versus Satan.
Yes.
The rock and roll music versus country music.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Because when I die, I may not go to heaven. That was old David Von Erich's theme music.
Really?
Yeah, that was his music. Tanya Tucker.
I never heard it.
Oh, yeah, Tanya Tucker. When I die, I may not go to heaven. Because they don't let cowboys in.
They don't let cowboys in.
I may just go to Texas, boy. Because about that's the closest that I'd ever been. I may have fucked up the lyrics a little.
It's all good. The Freebirds and the Von Erichs were a match made in heaven, as they were destined to put on the best matches possible, and as a result, sold out everywhere.
One of my favorite Freebird Von Erich matches and moments is the whole country whipping match they had. They don't really talk about it, but they show footage from it here.
Yeah.
One of my favorite matches. I mean, hands down. It's the old fashioned. Both teams get a strap, and you just go in there and you beat them like the woman that doesn't make you a sandwich. You just you take care of your business.
Of all the analogies.
I had no analogy for this. I was digging.
Oh, yeah. Now, the Freebirds would get their heat by coming out to the ring, waving the Confederate flag and trash-talking Texas, with Terry saying, "I'd rather be in Georgia right now."
Well, amen.
And Kevin grabbed the mic and said, "You think this is a war between Texas and Georgia, and it's not. It's a war between decency and filth." Basically saying, look, this is not about Texas and Georgia. It's about we're good, decent people, and y'all are smut and filth. So we're going to...
Smut and filth!
Yes.
Smut and filth!
Yes. I just wanted Gator to have that moment. The Freebirds were the original cool heels.
People wanted to cheer these guys. And the women loved him because Michael Hayes had the long blonde hair. He was basically a pussy magnet.
Yes.
A lot of people don't believe this, but the baby faces back then had the quantity of rats. The heels had the quality. My grandfather told me that.
And I can see the truth in that, because if you're a baby face, you're not turning down any rat that comes to you.
Oh, no. You don't turn down pussy.
That's what I'm saying. But if you're a heel, you can turn down the ugly chick and go with the hotter chick.
Always go with the hotter chick.
Yes. And the rivalry with the Von Erichs lasted 2.5 years and even packed Texas Stadium.
3.
Oh, the documentary said 2.5.
I don't give a fuck. It was 3. If you count the early years. So the reason that rivalry started was because there was this miscommunication. See, the Freebirds were originally helping the Von Erichs. And there was a miscommunication where it was in a cage match with Ric Flair and Carey. Carey hit Ric Flair, and Ric Flair got knocked into Michael P. Hayes, who was knocked out of a cage. And it was just a miscommunication that led to years of fighting.
Okay, so that's where it initially started from?
Yeah, it started from a steel cage match, yes.
Okay. Now, they even packed Texas Stadium. Like, that's how big this rivalry got.
Yeah.
They packed Texas Stadium to see Freebirds and the Von Erichs fight each other. And they drew nothing but money the entire time.
Yeah, all day, every day.
This is one of the rare moments where you're seeing a 6-man team and a 6-man team in a main event drawing money.
Yeah.
Like, they were probably drawing more money than whoever the world-class champion was.
Yeah.
I'm not saying to be a dick. I'm just saying those are the facts in front of me. Now, outside of the ring, the Birds were trouble. and went looking for trouble. They would drink all night and in the ring sweat all the booze out.
Fuck yeah! Rock and roll, baby!
Yeah. They said the perfect cure for a hangover is wrestling.
Wrestling?
Yes, that's the perfect cure for a hangover for the Freebirds.
Can I just throw something in there as somebody who used to be a booze hound and no longer is a booze hound,
Sure,
but has been in that situation?
Yeah.
Accurate.
That's accurate?
Accurate as hell.
Now, Terry's temperament was even until he drank. So basically, Terry was a pleasure to be around until he got drunk.
Well, most wrestlers are a pleasure to be around until they get drunk.
Yeah.
I've had to go to bars because I had brought guys in to do shows and they decided they were going to go get drunk, and I had to call Vinny and be like, hey, what do I do here?
Make sure they can at least make it to the ring.
And they didn't. I'm fine, though.
Now, one night at a bar, someone was flirting with his wife, so he beat the shit out of him.
Amen. That's what you do.
Yeah. The cops showed up, arrested him, and he headbutted the hood of the car and left a serious dent.
Fuck yeah. That's rock and roll, baby.
Yeah. Terry never backed up from anybody, and nobody could make him back up.
Yeah.
That's some scary ass shit.
That is some scary ass shit. I've seen worse.
I haven't, thank God.
I've been a part of worse.
I can only imagine. Despite their wild reputation, in 1984, Terry Gordy and the Fabulous Freebirds catch the attention of Vince McMahon and the World Wrestling Federation.
Oh, God.
They were in a meeting with Vince, and they were hungover and still partially inebriated. Terry fell asleep, and Vince was pissed off.
Ruined.
What?
He ruined him.
Who ruined who? What?
He tried to bring him. Okay, here's the real story. They were inebriated, okay, because they're the Freebirds. They can do that, okay? Vince brings them over, okay, and he ruins them, and he turns poor, sweet, beautiful Michael fucking Hayes into Doc Hendricks. Buddy Rogers is just fucking gone, and Terry Gordy, we'll get to that momentarily.
Yeah. I will say this, though. I can't really blame Vince for being pissed off. Like, you're in a meeting and you're falling asleep in the middle of it. It's one thing to be hungover and, like, groggy, but when you fall asleep in a meeting, that's a fuck you and disrespect. So I can see Vince be, I would be pissed about that.
Hold on a minute. Let me ask somebody in our friend group that has experience dealing with people that are hungover and drunk. Benny, how is it when the ginger gets to drinking?
He's a belligerent jackass.
You see, children, all the boss wants you to do is just be sober enough to operate.
Yes. And that's why he knows when he comes over here to do the NXTs or any podcast or video for that matter, he knows he doesn't drink. He'll drink when he gets home. He can drink in his house, but I don't want him drinking here. Everybody in the group have all made it unanimous that we do not want Zach to get drunk. And that if he becomes belligerent, he gets kicked out and he has to Uber home. So I told him, if you don't have money for an Uber, you better fucking behave yourself.
So never get inebriated, children, unless you're getting ready to wrestle, and then it's okay because that's a cure for a hangover.
Yes, but don't be hungover at a meeting with a promoter. Save
never
the party.
do that. No, don't do that.
Save the partying for after the show, which is, as I said last week, that's what Buff would do. When Buff was at his wrestling shows, he was always sober. He was fucked up before and after, before he got clean. So
yeah, but now he's clean. Now he's clean, and it is okay.
Yes, now he's clean. Now, after wrestling a handful of matches, the Freebirds flame out at the WWE. But Terry has a chance to take his career in a new direction. He goes to Japan, where he is less flashy and flamboyant.
Japan.
Yes, where he's less flashy and flamboyant because Japanese fans don't really buy into that, which I know sounds weird when you watch it today, but it's a different time period. They believed in monster Americans who were giant, crazy, and beat up everybody in their path. That's what the Japanese people wanted to see. Because they said the Japanese fans didn't buy into flashy and flamboyant back then. Today, oh dear God.
Yes, yes.
Like, that's why even when Hogan would be in interviews in Japan, he said, I came here to wrestle and not bullshit. Like, Hogan didn't do WWE style Hogan matches in Japan. He actually freaking worked.
He had to actually wrestle, yes.
Yeah, and he did very well. So it's like, yeah, I can do this shit, but it's not what's drawing the money in the States. That's why I do what I do here. But if you need proof that I can do it, here it is. Terry loved the hard-hitting style, which made him one of the greatest to ever cross over from America to Japan. So in Japan, they had a strong style, but there was psychology to it back then.
Psychology.
It eventually took a toll on his body, and he started having serious knee problems. He was going to Japan 6 months a year, and at one point, he tore both of his ACLs. He was still wrestling in main event level matches and eventually had to have double knee surgery. But here's the kicker. Before they could perform the surgery, he had to lose weight because apparently he was so fat that he couldn't do surgery, which I didn't know that you could be too fat to have surgery. That blew my fucking mind. I never knew that. I'm not a medical professional, but apparently that's the case. So Terry gets in touch with Richard Simmons, and he went from 320 pounds to 265 pounds.
Because Richard Simmons said, lose some weight. No.
Yeah. Come on, Terry. You're feeling mighty. You're feeling great. You're in great shape. Come on, Terry. And Terry's got to be looking at him like, what the fuck am I doing?
I'm losing weight. I'm losing. Anyway.
Yeah. I'm losing weight. I'm looking great. I'm losing weight. I'm looking great. That's, if you ever see Richard Simmons, that's pretty much what he does. Now leaner and more powerful and working in a physical style that plays to his strengths, Terry's performance in the ring reaches new heights. So now with the surgery and now that he's in better shape, his wrestling improves dramatically. He has a match against Misawa. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Hiro Misawa, to be specific.
Yes. On June 1st, 1991, they had this match. Terry showed in this match he was a master of his craft, even going as far as to use fingers to try to pry fingers away while performing a simple chin lock.
Yeah.
When I saw that, I was like, damn, I'm surprised no one ever thought to do that.
That's old school shit.
Terry was a guy who made everything he did mean something, which is so lost today. He was the first American ever to win the Triple Crown Championship in Japan. And he is now officially their top guy.
Yes.
And that's a key thing. And Gator, again, this is something we always talked about when we do our classic pay-per-view reviews. Terry made everything he did mean something in a ring. If you're going to do something in the ring, make it mean something. Don't do it just to fucking do it.
Yes.
That's what makes the match believable, entertaining, and draws money. In Japan, Terry starts working with Dr. Death Steve Williams. And a tag,
oh, dear God.
Yes. And a tag team known for their brutality, and they were called the Miracle Violence Connection.
Hang on, hang on. Let us check on JR. Make sure he hasn't creamed himself. Jesus Christ.
Dear God Almighty. All right, he's good. So they brought the Japanese style to the United States. He would join the Freebirds in the States, but if he went to Japan, they were on their own. So to fill the void, they hire Jimmy Garvin.
We don't talk about this part.
So if you're wondering how Jimmy Garvin got into the Fabulous Freebirds, it was because they needed somebody when Terry was in Japan.
I'm not talking about this part.
You don't like Jimmy Garvin?
No, we don't. We wish he would die.
Now, Terry goes through a deep, dark depression in Japan as a result of being away from his family for so long. He was on the road 360 days a year. And as we mentioned, this is a ongoing issue that every wrestler has gone through, including Earthquake.
He was a big family man. You hear when they're talking to his daughter and his son. He's a family man. I mean, he's all about his kids.
Now, because he's on the road, he didn't have time to reset. This is when he starts taking the pills. And it goes from take as needed to take as like. Instead of being like, okay, I'm going to take as much as I need, now it's going to be like, whatever amount I fucking want. While on tour with Steve Williams, Terry suffers his first serious overdose.
Yep.
He was reaching a point where his mind and his body were telling him to stop. Now it's like, dude, you need a break. I get you love the business. You're dedicated. You're on the grind, as Triple H would say, but you need a break. Set to return to Japan, Terry boards a flight that will change his life forever. Before the flight, Terry Gordy consumes an excessive amount of muscle relaxers. Dr. Death Steve Williams notices Terry has stopped breathing. Stewardess gets up and is freaking out, and Steve is giving him CPR to keep him alive. They had to get him off the plane and get him in an ambulance, take him to the hospital. He was in a coma for a couple of days. When he finally woke up, he needed a wheelchair and assistance from a nurse and his nephew, Richard. He was quiet and had to relearn a lot of motor skills and was never physically and mentally the same. So the coma caused a lot of his, and I'm not saying this to be insulting, this is medically what happened. A lot of his brain cells dropped. Like I said, he had to relearn how to walk again, how to move again, like all the stuff that we take for granted, as people say. He's having to relearn everything. So physically, he's not the same, and mentally, he's just gone at the time.
Yeah.
Now, he eventually gets back in the ring and ends up going to Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And,
Yay!
and becoming a member of Cornette's Militia. I didn't know about Cornette's Militia.
Because you won't watch Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Who else is in this group?
A whole bunch of different people. So Cornette's Militia was basically the group that he had to take on the commissioner of Smoky Mountain, Bob Armstrong, who comes back as the Bullet and brings his kids in to help him and the Rock and Roll Express defeat Cornette, who's trying to become the commissioner of Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Apparently, some of the names that were in there was Al Snow,
Yep.
Kane when he was the Unabomber,
Unabomb, Al Snow, Terry Funk,
Jackie Moore, who was Sergeant Rock, and Bull Buchanan, who was the Punisher.
Yep, Bull Buchanan, yep.
So Terry Gordy joins Cornette's Militia, and he wasn't able to cut promos anymore. And although he was still able to do the moves, there was no life to it. So basically, he would go out there and just go through the motions. He knows how to do them. He just doesn't know how to make them exciting while he does it. It's like watching someone at a wrestling school saying, look what I can do, and just doing the moves. In his
There's no
case,
passion. There's no fire.
No fire, yes. And it's not his fault, though. That's the thing. It's not like, they get it. People understood why he was like that. I mean, the fans didn't, but...
Well, he had fucked himself up.
Yeah. I mean, the boys understood. Cornette understood. The fans, though, they're paying money, so they don't give a shit. Like...
Well, and then at that point, there were people that asked, what happened to Terry Gordy?
Despite a challenging rehabilitation, Terry stages a comeback, culminating a legendary match against Cactus Jack at, at IWA's now infamous King of the Deathmatch tournaments. Now, I know that deathmatch is considered a dirty word today.
It's evil. It's up there with the F word.
Yes.
But some of us are whores.
Yes. But back then, they at least, there was something to it.
Back then, they had psychology with it. So
yes. They were the first round of the Kawasaki Dream Match tournament. And they had
by the way, the finals of this tournament ended up being Mick Foley and Terry Funk.
And I think that's when Mick Foley won that.
Yeah, it was an exploding barbed wire ladder match of death.
Was there actual explosions or were there sparklers on the ring posts?
Oh, no. They actually really tried to blow each other up, unlike AEW.
Foley noticed that one of the holes in Terry's game was that the punches were no longer there.
Yeah.
Like, he couldn't throw a proper working punch anymore.
No.
So Foley told him in the match to lay them in to preserve his reputation. So now for a shoot, he's stiffing him in the ring. Foley's getting stiffed with every punch, and he's willing to take the hits so Terry Gordy doesn't look like a pussy out there. Now, the match went great, and Terry had the best post-injury interview of his career. This was a great shining moment for Terry Gordy after everything that happened in Smoky Mountain. Despite an impressive performance at King of the Deathmatch, it's clear that Terry Gordy's overdose has changed him. In 1998, Terry agrees to film an interview out of character for RF Video, which most of you, if you've seen shoot interviews on YouTube and stuff, RF Video is very big on that.
There was one video that was took at a Dairy Queen.
Yes. Also, there was the infamous, verbal showdown between New Jack and Balls Mahoney. That's a cringe one to watch.
That's cringe. Yeah, that's cringy.
Yeah.
They're not like our friends over at Kayfabe Commentary who do fine programming.
Yes. And for the first time, fans at home are able to see for themselves the change in his cognitive capabilities, which basically means they're seeing now the way he talks, what's wrong with him.
He's fucked up.
Yes. But not because he's high on anything, but because of all the effects of the coma and everything.
Yeah.
He had a hard time answering questions because the coma had taken a lot of his memories. So he doesn't remember a lot. So he can't really give a good interview. And at that moment, you kind of feel bad for RF Video there because in case y'all are not aware of this, these wrestlers get paid to do this.
Yeah.
They're paying these wrestlers a fee to sit down and interview with them, either at a house or a hotel or whatever.
And it's hard. And some of these older guys, it's hard for them to actually talk about the business because of the whole kayfabe thing. So they had to bribe them in order to get them to talk about the business.
Exactly. And yeah, that's why when you see some of the Darkside episodes, like I remember Taz, Zach and I talked about the Bam Bam Bigelow episode. It took a lot to get Taz to talk about the inner workings of the match with Bam where they went through the ring and how that all went down. And you could see him like struggling with it, but he knew that's what the fans were looking for. So he's like, took a deep breath and calmed himself down and said, all right, here's how it worked. And he eventually explained it. But you could tell he was struggling with that. Even when CM Punk talked to Ariel Helwani, he had a difficult time, but was able to muscle his way through it.
Me.
Yeah.
No. Our early years, remember?
Yes, I remember.
And I still do have a problem with some things.
I will say, once Gator came out of his shell.
It wasn't a shell. I was trying to protect the business.
Well, that's what I meant. Yeah. But once Gator got past that, the ratings went up when he did. So it was beneficial.
Yes. The fucking ratings.
And educating the children. As Terry attempts to get back into the spotlight, his longtime friend, Freebird, Michael P.S. Hayes, who Gator said by this point was Doc Hendricks.
Which is bullshit.
Convinces the WWE to add Terry to their roster. So Michael puts in a good word for Terry.
Yeah.
Now, he puts him under a hood and calls him the Executioner.
Dear God.
Now, at first, people were mad that he was put under a mask. But later they understood it was a respect thing, so it wouldn't destroy the reputation of Terry Gordy. Because they know if we say, hey, we got Terry Gordy, fans are going to have expectations that Terry can't meet. But if it's a completely different gimmick, they can do whatever the fuck they want with him. So they understood that's why we're doing this. We're not doing this because we're ashamed of having Terry on our roster. We're trying to protect his character and his reputation that he's built for so many years. So on that level, it makes sense. And he was part of a faction with Mankind and Paul Bearer.
Yes.
Which I'm still trying to process that combination.
So this was also during the time where they had the first Buried Alive match, how he ends up debuting.
Now, he later had a match with The Undertaker that many consider to be the drizzling shits.
That is a wrestling term.
Yes. Now, I haven't seen the full match. I don't know if that pay-per-view is on our pay-per-view review list.
I don't want to do it.
So I haven't seen the full match, so I can't say how bad it was.
It's bad.
From
it's
the
bad.
clip that I saw, it's pretty bad.
It's bad. I feel like if we ever get to that pay-per-view, we need to skip that match out of respect.
He became a pillhead to the point where he sat next to a woman on the plane taking medicine, and he would say, got any extras? Paul Bearer and Mick Foley were constantly having to go look for him and look out for him. And on the road, you do that to a degree, but you also have to look out for yourself and be an adult.
Yeah.
There's that fine line. Like, obviously, when you're traveling with somebody on the road, to an extent, you do look out for each other. Like, hey.
Yeah, we're talking to you, Colby Carino.
Yeah, whether it's Gator traveling with Colby or me traveling with Buff, you look out for each other on the road.
You look out for each other. Sometimes you bring Fireball. Sometimes you.
Well, we don't do that anymore. Anymore. We're done. But yes. So
we bring Diet Coke
or regular if I'm in the car. Yeah. Buff has his Diet Coke because that's what he likes. I have my regular Coke so I can stay awake on the road.
And so he doesn't kill people.
Exactly. That's true.
Because when Vinny doesn't have his regular Coke, he gets funky.
When Terry's short-lived stint in the WWE comes to an end, he finds himself back on the indie circuit doing shows around Tennessee and Georgia. So now he's back on the indies and
he's not making much money and it's getting worse.
Foley saw him at one of the shows where Terry was in the ring at intermission with his daughter taking pictures with fans. Sadly, only 2 fans got in the ring for pictures. The rest couldn't have cared less.
Yeah.
And thank God that's never happened to me and Buff. But I have seen that happen at indie shows where they put guys in the ring at intermission, take a picture, and no one wants to get in. Because Buff had a system for how he wanted to do it. But the reason I didn't mention it last week is because he still works on the indies. So I'm not giving his secret away.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah. As his wrestling career winds down, Terry redirects his focus and embraces what matters to him most.
His family.
Yes, he spends more time at home with his family. His kids loved it because they got to know him, and his son became great friends with him.
Because they ate a lot of biscuits and gravy.
Very true. Now, the thing is, he still worked indie shows. He just wasn't traveling on the road 300 plus days a year. He might be going out.
Japan. He wasn't.
Yeah, he wasn't in Japan. He wasn't traveling the globe. And if he was, it was on weekends. So he was home during the day. during the weekdays and stuff. So he got to spend more time with his kids. Now, after wrestling an indie match the previous night, Terry is found unresponsive at his home in Soddy Daisy, Tennessee. Richard tried giving CPR and slapping him in the face, but he was already gone. Ray shows up and pushes a cop out of his way to go see his dad. His dad had invited him to tag with him in a match on the indie show, but Ray was busy and couldn't make it, which that's gotta suck.
Mm-hmm.
Like your dad inviting you to tag at a show, you can't make it, and then he passes. It's like, dude,
Yeah, like your grandfather.
He's probably thinking to
And then he
himself, I
passes.
should have taken the time off from work. Now, on July 16th, 2001, Terry Gordy dies of congestive heart failure caused by a blood clot. Now, he is only 40 years old. He is a cautionary tale for others to not push themselves too hard.
Don't take shit you're not supposed to take.
And don't do shit you're not supposed to do over and over on a regular basis.
Yes.
This is why a lot of times when you see wrestlers killing themselves in a ring or doing all this crazy shit, it's like, yeah, there were guys who did that in the past and they paid the price for it way later in life. It's not worth it. Even Triple H, who said in that interview about being all about the grind early in your career. The grind means the work, not killing yourself in the ring.
Yes. Don't ever kill yourself in the ring. Killing is bad.
Killing is bad.
Killing is bad.
Yes. Obviously, you want to work hard, but don't kill yourself. And, most wrestlers today, they stay away from the pills and the alcohol because they saw what it does to other people. That's why you see a lot of wrestlers like the older veterans, they make jokes about how they grab their joysticks or their comic books. Now, as a wrestler, he did it better than almost anyone. He contributed more to the business than people realize. And that's the thing. I've heard Terry Gordy's name thrown around a few times, but it wasn't until I saw this episode just how much he really did for the business or how big of a star he really was. Because when I think of the Freebirds, I think of Michael Hayes, and I don't really know the other guys. I know about Michael Hayes. I now know about Terry Gordy. I knew about Jimmy Garvin from listening to Jim Cornette's podcast because he brings up Jimmy Garvin a lot. But
being a pussy, he didn't want to sell.
And then the other guy.
He did not want to sell.
Yeah. And the other guy.
Never wanted to sell. Always sell.
Always sell, yes. And then the other guy in the Freebirds, we mentioned his name earlier. I already forgot it.
Buddy Roberts.
Buddy Roberts. Okay, yeah. See, I already forgot that name. Says I don't even know.
The Nature Boy, Buddy Roberts.
Yes. Now, interesting at the end, they said he was the original guy who would wound up his arm before throwing a clothesline. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was the first one, yes.
To do that. And he also originated the power bomb.
Yes.
I did not know that. He was the guy who created the power bomb that would later be used by so many people and would later become finisher for like Kevin Nash. Batista would do a power bomb. Like there were wrestlers that would come out with the power bomb eventually, and then some would just use it as a spot in a match. Chris Candido later did out the top rope.
Yes.
So those were interesting facts about Terry Gordy that I really didn't know. And like I said, after watching this episode, I can honestly say Terry Gordy is definitely one of the greats.
He's always been one of the greats.
Yes. And my respect for him and the Freebirds have gone up tremendously.
Yes.
And again, he's another one of those guys that's also a cautionary tale. And I really hope that the younger guys in the business will learn from this and stop trying to kill themselves in the ring.
Heed the warning. Don't do stupid shit.
Exactly. I guess, ladies and gentlemen, that'll wrap up this episode of Boochcast Reviews, Darkside of the Ring. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you, Gator, for joining me. Now, make sure you guys tune in next week. We're going to have a hell of a show for you guys. It'll feature myself, the Broke Soulless Ginger, Mr. Zach Scott. We're going to be getting into saving face, the Brutus Beefcake story.
Because he's the booty man.
We're going to talk about that and so much more regarding Brutus Beefcake next week here on the Boochcast. So make sure you follow us on all of our podcast platforms. The link is down in the description box below. Follow us on all our social media platforms. The link is in the description box below. You can support the Boochcast, donate to the show. Go to podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/the Boochcast/support. That link will be down in the description box below. And of course, as always, hit the subscribe button and ring that bell to be notified so you never miss another episode of Boochcast Reviews Darkside of the Ring, as well as other additional Boochcast YouTube content. We'll talk to you guys next time. Until then, pizza, baby!
Yes. And I'm the Gator, and I'll see you later. Bye.